Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock and really just go over what happened today, what we can expect moving into next week, and really just quite a week that the market in general had this week with elections and everything, and just absolute madness. And yeah, hope some of you made some good money. So anyway, with all that being said and done, excuse me. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my analysis, I do have a membership section on YouTube live. Membership section live. Yeah, my membership section on YouTube is live. The link is down below in the description of the video. So check it out if you're interested. Just $3 a month. I share constant updates, posts, etc. Mainly on Tesla, but sometimes other stocks as well. Or for $5, you get access to all of that. And on top of that, you get access to my NVIDIA daily updates. But jumping right into it, Tesla closing the day with another whopping 8% increase, closing at just above $321 per share, which obviously compared to the market is a pretty decent outperformance, right? That's a pretty significant outperformance as we're essentially short squeezing, right? It is what it is. Tesla is absolutely squeezing right now. So there was a lot of momentum built up and it's pretty much unleashing. I mean, I don't know how much of it. Maybe there's still some more, steam left in the engine, but it's unleashing a damn good amount of it. Now, we're in a very, very interesting spot here for Tesla. So let's go over what this means moving forward. So let's start on the weekly, actually. We'll start on the weekly candle. I'm going to remove these indicators for now. And, okay, actually, I'm going to take one of them out here. So this is the thing that bulls always hate. People always get mad at me when I bring this up whenever Tesla rockets. Because, I don't know why. People always get mad. But, it's always worth mentioning. Again, this is, just looking at the history, looking at how Tesla has performed in the past. Let me move this actually for now as well. This is the weekly chart. This is the weekly chart, and the weekly chart, which is very rare, that this does not happen very often, where the weekly chart gets extremely oversold or extremely overbought. Pretty rare. Like if I zoom out over here, you can see it. Not very often. Each single one is a weekly chart, and you can see there's only a few times we ever come up to the red candle, all the way back here when we essentially short squeezed. Number one, we had another short squeeze over here, and then from there, we haven't really touched the the red band for quite a long time. The only other time we've touched the red band was when we were exceptionally oversold all the way down when Elon was selling. I'm sure some of you remember those days when we were at like $110 and everyone was thinking that Tesla is pretty much done, right? We were pretty much at oversold territories there, like extreme levels, not even just oversold, extremely oversold territories. Then we actually got pretty close up here when we had that pretty decent short squeeze. From that, once Elon selling was done, we had a massive short squeeze all the way from $100 all the way to $300 per share. Once again, we were very damn close on the weekly to the red band. We had a one over here that we had a massive short squeeze. I can't remember which one. This was we had that earnings massive short squeeze, and then we just rocketed up even more, also at the red band. But this was when the red bands were a little tighter. Now the red bands are much more expanded, kind of like when it was back here or back here. And we're pretty much there. We're pretty much right around it once again. Now, what does this actually mean? Well, again, you don't want to take this as the only thing, the only indicator and the only metric, the only thing that you look at, right? This is just one of many things that you want to pay attention to. But this just kind of gives you an idea of just the euphoria in the market, right? It's almost like, think of the bands in this case, and there's reason there's like three different tiers of them, right? The two yellows above and below, and then the red above and below. Think of this as almost like the that fear and greed index, or kind of like volatility, like the VIX. Just it's kind of similar in a sense where usually when you're probably very close to the bottom, the red band, there's probably a lot of fear, and the vice versa. When you're probably close to the upper red band, there's probably a lot of euphoria, and that's just kind of how you want to look at these, in my opinion, right? Again, it's not perfect, it's not always going to be right, but if we look at history, every single time it's come up relatively closely. I don't know why I just lead all the circles when I'm just drawing them back, but every single time it's come up to one of the major sides, right? Whether it's extremely oversold, like here, for instance, we'll just use these two as an example, or the extremely overbought, it has always, every single time, at the very least, come back down or up to kind of that mean reversion line, right? And that's kind of what the point of these bands is. It's more of like a mean reversion, right? Because things get overheated or literally the opposite, or like scared, I guess, oversold, right? That's just kind of how the market moves sometimes, especially with a stock like Tesla, right? It's a very, very options driven stock, which, it is what it is, right? And this is what's kind of happening with this kind of move right here, right? So when it comes to this, the whole reason I bring this up and the reason I'm spending a lot of time on this is because some people get, they get upset when I bring this up. They get very upset because they think that, we'll just continue going up to straight up to 400 next week, right? Hey, maybe that's possible. I'm not saying that's impossible, but just strictly off of risk rewards, strictly off of just at least staying somewhat consistent as a trader and looking literally at the history, again, every time, in this case, the weekly candles have gotten to these elevated territory and these elevated levels, well, again, you don't need me to tell you. You can just look at it for yourself and you have an idea as to what happened, in the weeks to come. I'll let you be the judge of that. Take it as you will. Again, if that makes you upset, it is what it is. Same with the daily chart. We're literally so far out of the band that this band can't even keep up. It can't even keep up with where we are. So just, again, take it for what it's worth. We are exceptionally oversold or overbought, but that doesn't mean that we have to crash or something like that. It does not mean that whatsoever. It just means that, the risk reward up here is starting to get, well, not that great, to be completely honest with you. And it is what it is, right? So that's just that. I'm sure that's enough of an idea as to what I'm trying to say, right? I'm sure you get the picture I'm trying to mention here. Now, let's take a look at the actual technicals in the chart, right? So obviously, the chart, you can see we are still roughly in this rising massive channel. Now, again, I want to make this clear, just because you're in a rising massive channel, it doesn't mean we have to just go like this. It absolutely could. No one knows. Literally nobody knows. The way we can try to extrapolate this is just our best guess, really, at the end of the day, right? That's all technical analysis is. It's just the best guess. You're doing what you can to try and assess what is the more likely probability of something happening next, right? So again, even though I don't think this is going to happen, it's, you can't fully rule this out, where Tesla would essentially roll all the way back, all the way down to the bottom of this channel, sitting at 240 roughly, let's just say, or like high 230s. Probably not. Let's be completely honest here, right? There's a damn low chance of that happening, but it's not zero. And that's all that matters. It's absolutely not zero. However, that's just like a more extreme example, assuming we continue kind of zigzagging in this channel. The other option is the fact that, well, we can just break out of this channel. This is a pretty bullish thing to happen. Like, this doesn't usually happen, but it's not impossible, where we just break out of this channel. And if we break out of this channel and essentially turn this channel back into support, that is the ultimate super duper, like, ultra bull case scenario, right? That's something else to watch out for. Now, let's look at the horizontal levels, right? This is where I personally like to trade the most. I like the horizontal levels because, again, there's no bias. With channels, lines, trend lines like this, there's always some level of bias because there's a million different ways you can probably draw them, right? The thing with the horizontal lines is that there's absolutely no bias, right? And you can see I have a few horizontal lines here that we rejected at, and I'll also show you something else that's essentially mathematically, which is the Fibonacci extension, which is just math. There's no bias there whatsoever as well. Now, when it comes to this, right, we had obviously important pivot levels all the way back here, back in the 2022s essentially, right? The first one was right here, which was about that 313, 315 level that I mentioned, which we obviously broke past. The next one was right here. That was a massive area of support, which is pretty much around 325 roughly, right? And that's kind of the two levels that, stalled us throughout the day. If I go to the 1 hour chart, you can see, we roughly came up to this level and we started getting a little bit of rejection, but we ended up blasting right past 315, actually surprisingly quickly, right? If I go on the 15-minute chart, you can see we stalled a little bit, and then we blast past 315, and we actually turned it back into support. So that was pretty damn bullish, right? I ended up playing this breakout. I honestly did sell too early. I didn't think it'll blast to, I thought it'll stop at 315 roughly. We ended up going to 325, which was that next pivot level, right? And you can see we found some resistance around there and we finally went back under. So one thing you can take a look at is, well, if we start losing the 15-minute market bias, okay, there's some signs of weakness finally showing in short term, of course, right? So watch for that. But these are pretty important pivot levels that you definitely want to watch out for, and we cannot close above. But closing above 325 will yield the next major target, which I'll talk about very, very soon. But there's still some work to be done because not only are we closing below it, but we're still technically closing down slightly within this channel, this rising channel. So you definitely want to, at the very least, get these levels closed above on the daily to really get some serious momentum back up, and not back up, but like continue the momentum back up, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Now, let's say we don't. Let's say we do correct from here. Let's say we do make our way down. It's pretty simple. All the levels I just mentioned, other than 325, so for instance, 313, 315, 300, about 280, and as low as about 270, those are all supports now. It's really just that simple. So watch for those levels to be as the major supports. I personally would put, based on just how we've been performing, I wouldn't put too much weight into that 312, 315 because we blasted past it way too quickly anyway. So that I don't like. To me, that means that it's probably a little bit of a weaker support level. To me, the main support levels, without question, 300. That's going to be an absolutely large one, right? Absolutely big support. But in my opinion, the true support, the level that I genuinely would not be surprised if we at some point come back down to, I don't know when, maybe next week, maybe the next week or a week after that, maybe the next month. I have no idea when, but a level that wouldn't shock me to ultimately come back down to is still going to be this kind of 280 to as low as about the 270 range. Because again, this is the range that just gave us way too much trouble for way too long. And it's pretty unlikely. It's not impossible, but it's very unlikely for us to, or for a stock in general, to not come back and retest such a crucial resistance before level. Now, hopefully, of course, turn support. It'll be pretty, it's a pretty rare instance where that doesn't happen at some point. Now, again, with the way Tesla moves, it might take longer than I even expected. It may take longer. Maybe it'll just be instant. I don't know. But I do expect at some point Tesla to come back down at least to 300, ideally, in my opinion, to about that 270, 280-ish range to test that area and turn it back into support. So in my opinion, definitely want to watch for that. And especially with the market looking a little bit on the top end, which I'll talk about really soon, there is just, there is definitely a real possibility that happens, especially considering, at the end of the day, again, we're so stupidly overbought. It's actually kind of funny how overbought we are. I don't think I've seen it this overbought for quite some time. It's legitimately Looney Tunes level, almost overbought, right? It is what it is. Now, let's talk about the Fibonacci extension. This is where things are getting more interesting in my opinion. Now, Fibonacci extensions is essentially just, Fibonacci levels to the upside, right? For instance, we had this nice little rally retracement to pretty much that 618 Fibonacci, and then we ended up rallying from there. So this kind of gives you an idea, okay, how far can we rally? And if I bring out this Fibonacci and I go over to the 1 hour just so you can see how, pretty damn good this thing is. You can see as we rocketed up, we ended up going to the 0.786 level, and we kind of hovered around it. Okay, we went above it, and then we went to the 1 level, which is like the full move essentially, from that initial start that we had, the initial fall, pre-earnings, had that massive rise, had that massive fall down here back to 242, and this essentially completes the initial actual move back all the way here at around $300 per share. This is why we stood around this level for a bit, right? It took us some time to really get back above this level. Well, okay, when I say some time, I mean like a few hours, but nonetheless, compared to how fast we're moving, that technically is a while, right? But we blasted past it. We blasted past it this morning, right? That's all that matters. And what did? We came up to the next level, and you can see that we came up to this next level at 1.272, which is about that 315 level I've been mentioning, and we started stalling around it again, ended up blasting past it to the next level, which is about that 325 level I mentioned, which was that pivot point back in 2022, which is that 1.414 Fibonacci level, as well as an extension. Now, the way I look at it is this. If Tesla still has juice left, right? If Tesla still has steam left, which it might, again, I don't know. It might. It absolutely might. I think the next level, if it can start closing the candles above this level, 325, 326, and it can start actually meaningfully closing several candles above, I think the ultimate ultra bull case target for Tesla before this move will finally stop, at least short term, and it'll finally begin to, cool off and correct and calm down and whatever, kind of the way it did here, for instance, right? Remember back when we had this massive gap up and we just kind of kept going, and then ultimately finally cooled off. Essentially this move, right? This move is essentially the move I would expect. Either now or we make one more leg up to that final target of the 1.618 Fibonacci, which will be somewhere around that 338-ish range. That to me is probably the highest I can see Tesla moving. I'd be pretty surprised if you move higher than that without some correction, some short-term consolidation, move back down to, let's say, about $300 per share. It would genuinely be extremely surprising if we move higher than this straight. For instance, we just go like this. We just go like this, and we just, that would really shock me. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. I'm not shorting or anything. It doesn't really matter if it happens to me. As long as I'm on long-term hold, I'm happy with that. Not a problem. But again, just strictly trying to speak objectively as possible, I would be pretty surprised if that were to happen off of this Fibonacci retracements. Now, the reason these Fibonacci retracements are important is because a lot of stocks are starting to enter their pretty important levels that, are usually levels that are, for instance, the NVIDIA is sitting at its 1 level. It's pretty common to just stop at the 1 or go as high as one of these levels, right? But 1 is a pretty common level to stop at. It's just Tesla's pretty much short squeezing right now. You have these levels. You have SPY, for instance, right? Sitting at, it hit 600 and sold off, but you can see it's sitting at this red Fibonacci and it's pretty much right at it. Best case scenario I can see for SPY is about 602, which really isn't that much higher than what we, put in today as the high. QQQ a little bit on the weaker end, actually. You can see QQQ is struggling at the 1.272 Fibonacci extension level, right? So these are levels that, these levels can definitely get a pretty decent rejection in the market. And again, if that were to happen, it can potentially affect Tesla and just really the broader market as a whole. We talked, excuse me, we talked about how FOMC, usually the opposite move happens the next day. And it kind of happened today. I mean, the market's overall up, but pretty much every mega cap or Mag 7 stock is down. Every single one of them is down except for Tesla. So that reverse move technically happened. It's just, I think Tesla is just, man, it's just, I mean, 8% is pretty insane, right? And that's probably helping to prop the market up a little bit more than compared to pretty much every other mega cap Mag 7 stock, which is pretty much down. So that's interesting to know. But nonetheless, that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. Again, if there's any juice left, I would be surprised if we go higher than 338 like that. I think that'll be the major target. And I really don't think we'll go higher than that. But there's a damn good chance that this is, at least for now, all that we get. And then we start the correction and move back down to about 300 as my first target and about 280 to 270 as my second target. Those are my main two targets to the downside. I do think at least the 300 will hit. There's no way the 300 wouldn't hit. Like, I know euphoria is high and people don't want to hear anything except for Tesla go up. But, again, I'm always here to say what I just personally think, and whether that's right or wrong remains to be seen. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at for Tesla moving forward. A lot of information. We're already 15 minutes in. I just want to make one final thing here. Tesla obviously had an astronomical amount of call flow throughout the day. But the thing that's interesting is despite this unbelievable amount of call flow that did come in, a lot of them were, you can see a lot of them were for either next week. So we could still get some continuation up for next week to that 338 level. That is a possibility. But a pretty damn good amount of them were for the expiration of today. A lot of them were expirations for today, like a substantial amount of them were for today's expiration. So we'll see how that plays out. And Tesla, this is why I think it's interesting, on Black Box for confirmed bullish flow, it's only at 13 million. Only 13 million. That's not a lot considering the amount of calls that did come in on Tesla throughout the day, which tells me that, again, probably a lot of profit taking did start to occur towards the end of the day. We did get a little bit of a sell-off towards the end of the day, of course, right? We started obviously, moving our way down towards the end of the day. You can see here. So I assume that's just mainly profit taking, and why Tesla's confirmed bullish flow is only 13.5 million, as opposed to like the astronomical amount of calls that did actually come in throughout the day. That's my kind of guess on that, and that's kind of my read on that as well. But yeah, that's all I got for you. Unbelievable day, unbelievable week as well. It's getting to the point where I'm even considering selling my long-term account. That's quite literally up double the amount right now at this level. So I'm not gonna lie, it's tempting, but I'm gonna think over the weekend and see what I decide to do. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, all that being said, thank you so much for watching. See you for the video on Monday. Peace.